Chapter 14. Page 171. Robert bought evening newspapers and looked over the financial page. Noted that cotton, wheat, and corn had advanced that day. His birthday had indeed been a success, financially, and his 21st birthday found him on top of the world. But this was not what counted with Robert. The great disappointment was that his hopes for Marie on that day were blasted, but he had not given up. As he looked over the newspapers, he saw an advertisement headed, Madame Cleo, Clairvoyant. The advertisement stated that Madame Cleo could reunite the separated, and bring back lost lovers. While Robert had never been to a clairvoyant, and his only faith was in astrology, and science laid down in the Bible. In desperation, he decided to grasp at any straw. Early on the morning of June 10, he called to see Madame Cleo. She told him that he had gone through a great sorrow, but that his sweetheart would return to him in a few days. He should be of good cheer because Marie loved him only. That it had been a case of nervous indecision which had caused Marie to disappear, and that she would return just as suddenly as she had disappeared. Robert felt more hopeful and returned to his hotel, hoping to get some news of Marie. There were no letters or telegrams. He called up the broker's office to find out how cotton and wheat were that morning, and found that they were strong and higher. His calculations showed that wheat and cotton should be top for a reaction on June 10, so he wired his broker in New York to sell out his wheat and cotton. Corn was down that morning. So he telegraphed the broker to buy 20,000 bushels of September corn. After sending this telegram, he glanced over the morning paper and saw an advertisement headed, Professor O.B. Joyful, Astrologer. Robert eagerly read the advertisement because the name attracted him. And he was looking for something to make him joyful. Professor Joyful's advertisement stated that, with the science of astrology, he could tell when success would start, when trouble would end, and reveal when marriage would take place. Robert was a great believer in astrology because he had found this great science referred to so many times in the Holy Bible. Robert remembered reading in the Psalms 111:2, The works of the Lord are great, sought out of all them that have pleasure therein. He had made notes as he read the Bible at different times where it referred to astrology or the signs in the heavens, and was thoroughly convinced that the influence of the heavenly bodies govern our lives. Genesis 1:7, 16 and 18. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament, from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God made two great lights, and the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness, and God saw that it was good. Genesis 7:2. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female. Joshua 10:12 and 14. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And there was no day like that before it, or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Samuel 22:8. That all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the sons of Jesse, and there is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait, as at this day. Job 22:14. Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Job 26:10 and 11. He hath compassed the waters with bounds, until the day and night come to an end. The pillars of heaven tremble, and are astonished at his reproof. Job 37:18. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molten looking glass? Psalms 19:1, 4 and 6. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. Psalms 136:7 and 9. To him that made great lights, for his mercy endureth forever. The moon and the stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever. Proverbs 8:27 and 28. When he prepared the heavens, I was there, when he set a compass upon the face of the depth. When he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep. Ecclesiastes 1:3 and 5. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where arose. Isaiah 40:22. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. Isaiah 43:5. Fear not, for I am with thee, I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. Ezekiel 1:22. And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creature was as the color of the terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above. Amos 9:6. It is he that buildeth his stories in the heaven, and hath founded his troop in the earth. He that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name. Habakkuk 3:2. O Lord, I have heard thy speech, and was afraid, O Lord. Revive thy work in the midst of the years, in the midst of the years make known, in wrath remember mercy. St. Matthew 24:29 and 30. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man, in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven, with power and great glory. Robert knew that the Bible was replete with references that the heavens ruled. He had read where it said, "Discern the end, from the beginning," where Jesus said, "I will judge you in the place of your nativity." He hastened to the office of Professor O.B. Joyful, in the hope that the great science of astrology would throw some light upon the disappearance of Marie. The secretary told him that the professor was very busy, and as Robert had no appointment, he would have to wait a while. Glancing around the walls of the office, he saw some beautiful cards of poems hanging on the walls. One was entitled, "The Power of Love." This attracted Robert's attention. Sunbeams after showers are brightest, seeking sorrow is a sin. Woman's heart is ever lightest, when love, the jewel, dwells within. Robert thought that this was a wonderful poem, and he knew that it applied to man as well as woman, because his heart was ever light when love dwelled within, knew that it was Marie's beautiful eyes and the hope of seeing them again, which was guiding him now across the troubled sea of time. He anxiously awaited the time when he could tell his troubles to Professor Joyful, hoping that they would soon be turned into joy. He read another poem on the wall. Love is a gift to be used every day, not to be smothered and hidden away. Love is not a thing to be stored in the chest, where you gather your keepsakes and treasure your best. Love is a gift you should use every day. Nora Perkins. Robert knew that he was using love every day, and it seemed that the professor had prepared his office to receive those in love. Another poem read, "We starve each other for love's caress, we take, but we do not give. We know it is easy some soul to bless, but we dole out affection, giving less and less, until the world becomes bitter and hard." Robert felt that he had not been stingy with his love for Marie, and that he had showered his affection upon her. The Bible said that love begetteth love, and he knew if he received as he gave, his reward would be the return of Marie and her love. By this time, the secretary announced that Professor Joyful was ready to receive him. He entered the professor's office, where he met a middle-aged man whose kindly face indicated that he had sympathy for those in trouble. Robert stated briefly his troubles. Upon being asked his date of birth, said he was born June 9, 1906. The professor made out his horoscope hurriedly and told him that Venus and Mars were in conjunction by transit in the sign Leo, which ruled the heart, that Venus applied to a trine of Uranus, and that while he could give him hopeful news and could assure him from his horoscope that he would one day find Marie, he could not offer false hopes and state that he would find her within a few days. Said there was a possibility of his finding her within 2 years, but it would probably be 3 or 4 years before she would ever come into his life again. In view of the fact that Venus was separating from a conjunction of Mars on the day he had called to inquire about Marie, the indications were that his sweetheart, Marie, would be separated farther from him rather than come closer to him at this time. He assured Robert that Marie was alive, that no harm had come to her, and that none would, that she was carrying out her own secret plans. Was faithful to Robert, and had no other lover. He told Robert that he was a born genius and in the next few years would make a great success in speculation and in the field of aviation. While Robert was disappointed, he felt that this scientific man was telling the truth and decided to take his advice, try to be patient, and to face the future with hope. The professor told Robert that his horoscope indicated that he would eventually realize all his hopes and ambitions. Venus, in the sign Cancer, promised happiness in love affairs eventually, but Neptune therein indicated a skeleton in the family closet and some secret mysterious happenings in connection with the home and domestic relations. Robert told him of his plans to go to New York, and the professor stated that New York City was ruled by the sign Cancer, and in view of the fact that the planet Venus, the goddess of love, was located in that sign, he would eventually meet or find Marie in New York City. This cheered Robert greatly because he knew he wanted to go to New York to make money in speculation and complete his inventions. Professor Joyful told Robert that Venus progressed in the sign Leo, which rules the heart, would cause some great sorrows and heartaches when there were afflictions to it. He had started the trip with the moon in the sign Leo, ruling the heart, but it had separated from good aspects and was applying to evil ones. His ruling planet applied to an evil aspect of Uranus, indicating great worries following the starting of this journey. Said that he had planned his marriage for an unfortunate day and that it was better that it did not take place at that time. Assured Robert that there was no doubt about the realizations of his hopes in the future, but that the delay was inevitable. He told him that the clairvoyant who promised that he would find Marie in a few days, was only encouraging his hopes, and that science, which could be depended upon, did not confirm these hopes, or at least the immediate realization of them. There was a possibility of his finding Marie in a foreign state or country, or that some news would come to him of her from a great distance. He asked Robert for Marie's date of birth. Robert told him that he knew she was born on October 6, but that he was not sure of the year, but he thought it was in 1908. The professor told him that if this date was correct, it would confirm all that he had told him, and it indicated a long delay before he would find her. Robert returned to his hotel more hopeful, and with the firm decision to face the future and carry out his plans, living faithful to Marie. On his arrival at the hotel, he received a telegram from Mr. Kenilworth. Reading. Leaving on the Sunshine Special tonight, arrive St. Louis Saturday morning, be ready to leave immediately with me for New York. Robert was more cheerful after reading this message because since Marie's disappearance he had not met a man or woman he had ever known before. Mr. Kenilworth was a dear friend of his, and it would be very comforting to meet him and talk over his troubles. He was also anxious to meet his old pal, Walter Kenilworth, so he decided to get ready to go on to New York. The big reception for Colonel Charles A. Lindbergh was planned, and would take place in New York on Monday, June 13, and he wanted to be there. But every time he thought of anything that would give him happiness or pleasure, he thought of Marie and knew that without her it would not mean as much to him. Still, he hoped Marie might appear or that some news of her might be received before he left. He wanted to see Captain Lindbergh, and his plane, the Spirit of St. Louis. For Robert was dreaming of the day when he would complete his own great plane according to Ezekiel's plan. Robert went to his room and spent the balance of the day reading the Bible and working out future cycles on wars. Figured that great opportunities would come for making money in the stock and commodity markets, and that he was going to make a great financial success and carry out his plans. On June 11, Mr. Kenilworth arrived. Robert met him at the Union Station in St. Louis. He had only about an hour to wait before the train departed for New York. No news had been received of Marie. Mr. Kenilworth told Robert that her parents were still hopeful that she was alive, but they were at a loss to understand why she had not communicated with anyone. He told Robert to keep up his courage, for he felt sure that all would end well. On the train to New York they talked of Robert's plans. Mr. Kenilworth said he was anxious for him and Walter to be together again and believed it was for the best. Robert told him that he had been making money in wheat and cotton, and that Wright Aeroplane was moving his way. That he was short of major motors, and expected to make a fortune selling it all the way down. Mr. Kenilworth expressed his continued faith in Robert's ability and told him that he was going to follow him on the market. While he admired him for his great love for Marie and his faith in her, worry would not bring her back, he said, and he should get down to business, study the Bible, work on his inventions, and leave the matter of Marie's return to the Lord, trusting and believing in him who knoweth and doeth all things well. Told Robert that he was a doer and not a dreamer. That he had demonstrated the greatest ability of any young man he had ever known. That he had the pep and quoted an epigram. The pessimist says it can't be done, the optimist says, let George do it, meanwhile the pessimist has done it. He said, Robert, you and Lindbergh are pessimists. You do it while the other fellow watches and waits, or says it can't be done. He quoted a poem from Tennyson. I cannot hide that some have striven, achieving calm, to whom was given the joy that mixes man with heaven. Who rowing hard against the stream, saw distant gates of Eden gleam, and did not dream it was a dream. I am sure you are to make your dreams come true. The Bible says, there is nothing better for a man than that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. Work is the only thing to drown your sorrows. If you go to work, complete your inventions and continue to study, the troubles will disappear. Time will fly lightly by and before you know it, Marie will return to you. Then Robert repeated a few lines by Dora Greenwald. Joy is a working thing. It builds up while it enlarges the whole nature. It is the wine to strengthen the heart, to brace it to carry noble enterprise. Mr. Kenilworth said, that is very fine, Robert, but you must work for the joy that is yet to come, and your great love for Marie will strengthen your heart and brace you to attain all your aims. Love is the great power behind the universe, and it is the greatest of all powers. Emotions are the motive power behind every great achievement, and without emotion nothing will ever be accomplished. There are three great emotions: love, fear, and hate, which actuate every deed, good or bad, and without them man would accomplish nothing. The great emotion which is going to help you accomplish all your plans and realize your greatest hopes and ambitions is love. A man makes money and saves it because he fears the future. Great nations go to war and fight because they are urged by the emotion of hate. They are also fighting through the emotion of fear, but if love was the emotion behind all, there would be no war, no sorrows, no troubles and no jealousies. Robert then showed a poem on love which he had written to Marie in The Garden of Love, which he had written at the time he and Marie had their first break in 1926. Mr. Kenilworth read these poems and was very much impressed with Robert's ability as a writer. He said, "Robert, this proves to me that love brings out the best in a man and that when he finds a good woman his success is assured." Robert talked of how he had read the Bible where it said that there eventually would be one God and one united people and that love would rule the world. How, since a little boy his mother had talked against war and prayed for the day when wars would cease and man would follow the command given by Jesus Christ. Love thy neighbor as thyself. He hoped, and felt sure that the day would come, but that the Bible made it plain as he understood it, that there would yet be a great war fought in the air, when deadly chemicals would be used and the greater portion of the people on earth would be killed. Then would come peace, when God would rule the world and love would be the motive behind every act. Then nations would no longer become jealous of each other and go to war. Robert said, "I have made a great study of wars in the past and how conditions changed. How at one time Spain was the mistress of the seas and later Rome was the controlling nation. Then England ruled the waves and London was the banking center of the world. Then came the Great War in 1914 which changed everything. England lost control of the seas. She lost her power as the great banking nation of the world. The gold supply of the world flowed rapidly to the United States, and in the dark days of 1917, when England and France, after being deserted by Russia, were fighting with their backs to the wall, the United States, the land of love and liberty, came to the rescue. Helped to defeat the Germans and saved England and France. At that time they were seemingly very grateful, but after the war conditions changed. The United States was no longer in debt to foreign countries but was now the banking nation of the world, and the foreign countries owed large sums of money to the United States. This country has continued to prosper since the war. The gold supply of the world now rests here. Our former friends have become jealous of the prosperity we enjoy, and the power that we now hold in financial affairs which once belonged to England. Some of the foreign countries do not want to pay their obligations, and this jealousy can lead to nothing else but war, as it always has in the past. I hope to be ready when that war comes with my great airplane, and other inventions to help defend my country. And later promote a lasting peace based on love and goodwill. The United States began as a land of liberty and has always set an example for the balance of the world, and I hope to see the day when our country will take the lead in establishing universal peace and the brotherhood of man. Captain Lindbergh's flight confirms my studies and forecasts of the future. Aviation will be developed rapidly and nations will want to try these new discoveries and inventions to conquer other nations, and war is inevitable. The Bible prophets foretold it, and my studies of the cycle theory also indicate that we are in a period where cycles will repeat which have caused war in the past. On the afternoon of June 12, Mr. Kenilworth and Robert arrived in New York City and were met at the train by Walter. Robert was very happy to meet his dearest friend, and it was consoling to be with him. After their arrival, they went to the Hotel Vanderbilt. Mr. Kenilworth went out to see a friend and left Robert and Walter to chat alone. Robert told Walter of the terrible sufferings he had gone through since Marie's disappearance and of his great disappointment. He talked of the success he had made in the market and of the future when he hoped to complete his great invention with the aid of Walter and his knowledge of chemicals and make discoveries which would end war for all times. But immediately after talking of his future plans his mind would revert back to Marie and he would start talking about her and bemoaning the fact that without her he could not go on in the future. Walter told him to forget about her. That time would bring changes, and that he would find another girl who would take the place of Marie. Robert was indignant and told Walter that time would never change him. That he would remain faithful to Marie until death, no matter if he never heard of her again. Walter said that Marie was too young to know her own mind, and was probably in love with someone else, or thought she was, which accounted for her sudden change and disappearance from the train. Robert then showed him the letter which he found in his pocket the morning that Marie disappeared. Walter read it. June 5, 1927. 3 a.m. Dearest Robert. According to your faith, be I unto you. Love will always have faith, understand and wait. Time proves all things. You will get everything you want. I will come to you when I mean the most, and your need for love is the greatest. Lovingly always. Marie. Walter said. This is certainly a mysterious letter. I don't understand it, and I don't suppose Marie did either. There is nothing in this letter to explain whether she was leaving you or not, or why or where she was going or anything about it. Now, Robert, don't you understand real love could never act like that or write like that? There is some secret behind all this, and my opinion is that there is another man in the case. But Robert refused to listen to any such reasoning. His faith in Marie was unshaken. His love for her was great enough to understand, to have patience and wait. Marie could or would do no wrong, and no amount of evidence would ever change him. Mr. Kenilworth returned to the hotel and after dinner told Robert that he wanted to have a confidential chat with his son Walter. Robert decided to go out for a walk and see the city. When they were alone, Walter told his father that he had had a long talk with Robert, and that his mind was on nothing but Marie. His father said, "The only thing to do is to help Robert get interested in his work so that he will forget about Marie. That is the best thing for him at present. The great love that he has for her will be the incentive to spur him on to success and help him realize his ambitions. Love is the greatest thing in the world, and without it man would not get very far. It brings out the noble and better qualities in a man and should always be encouraged.